Okay, we're live. And the echo has diminished slightly, so that's good news. Raj, welcome to the channel.
Nice to be here.
It's good to have you. Why don't you just explain to my audience a little bit about how I got in touch with you and a little bit about your background?
Yeah, so my background is, so let's just say I was stuck in my head for most of my life, and I was challenged with overthinking and overanalyzing everything. Like any move I'd make in life, I'd overanalyze it. So I guess you reached out to me because you saw my page and you saw the things I'm trying to get across to people. And basically, in a nutshell, what I'm trying to help people with is to be more of themselves. Beyond all of the noise that is in our head, all of these things that we think we should be, it's coming back to like that true power that's always there. So that's what I'm helping people with, because this is what I've done for myself, right?
And you've been a teacher and a practitioner for quite a long time now, right?
Yeah, so officially it's been about 2.5 years. But for myself, for just helping people in general, probably around 5 years or so, let's just say.
5 years. Okay. So yeah, I mean, just for everyone watching, I reached out to Raj because I've been practicing mindfulness for about 7 years. And I find a lot of the teachers that I've seen online are very stuck in these sort of esoteric ideas, and they become quite unrelatable. A lot of them are talking about things, but there's no practical steps. There's no sense of, I can relate to you as a person. And in a sense, I can respect you as a role model, or as someone that I see myself being like. And I looked across your channel and I thought the way that you were communicating what you teach and what you've learned was incredibly down to earth and very relevant for sort of young men today, which is the majority of the guys watching this.
Yeah.
So I thought it would be great to get you on to talk a little bit to some of my audience about your experience and how mindfulness can help them, particularly as it relates to their social and dating life and becoming more confident as a man in strange, bizarre world that is 2022 and basically since 2019. So I guess the first question I'd ask you, Raj, is how can a mindfulness practice help young men who are sort of hyper self-critical, neurotic, overthinking things, caring what others think of them? How can a mindfulness practice help these guys to quieten that noise and to become more confident in themselves as men?
Yeah, great question. So what mindfulness can really help with is to slow down the reactivity to life. So we'll get hit with all of these thoughts, and sometimes, I know a lot of men will have doubts over themselves and their ability as a man, right? To be a man. So there'll be all these doubts, these questions, and sometimes that will lead us to behaviors that are not favorable to try and feel good about ourselves, right? Ultimately, that's what we're trying to do. But the practice of mindfulness teaches you that you can really slow down and listen in to, okay, what is really true? Can I slow down just a fraction? And when you do that, everything is with greater poise. Business, entrepreneurship, speaking to women, it's just a fraction slower with a bit more poise about you, and you can speak more eloquently. You can behave more eloquently. So I think that's what would help men the most, just being a bit sharper in everything they do.
Yeah. I completely agree with that. A lot of the time when I'm coaching clients, the major problem that happens is that they have a thought like, I'm having a bad day, or I'm not feeling confident today. And if they just observe that thought as it was, right, it's just an appearance that crosses their mind, and then passes. And then they come back to the environment around them, to the people in the street, to what they were doing before. That thought would just pass through. It would just glide off like a fly hitting their shoulder, right? But what guys do is they latch onto that thought and they prolong the feeling that they're not good, right? The half-life of that original thought might be a couple of seconds. I'm not feeling confident. You speak that negativity over yourself. You say that negative thing about yourself and you enforce it and you re-instigate that feeling of lack of confidence. And I think cultivating the ability to just let that thought pass through their mind and then release it and come back to what they were doing, like what they were focused on, which is the real world, is a lot of the time the difference between failure and success, as they would see it on that day, right? A good day or a bad day.
Yeah, definitely. That's it. It's like you said, the thought is just an occurrence, just like a cloud that passes over, right? And if you let the cloud pass, then look, there's sunshine, you're back to your greatness. But as soon as you grab onto it, you attach to it, you believe that that's true, then of course you become that. You become whatever you are thinking because you believe it, right? Whereas exactly what you said, you let it go and, oh, cool. It's not actually true that I'm not confident. So many things come into play, but we got to really check out, like, what are the facts here?
100%. So when you're working with your clients, what kind of situations or issues are they facing, and how do you help them to overcome those?
Yeah, so I'm working with a lot of new entrepreneurs, and there's so many questions about them putting themselves out there, right? Them communicating what they do and communicating who they are. So they have all of these thoughts of self-doubt and, okay, like, what if I'm not good enough? And then comparing to others, right? As a big one that comes across, comparing to everyone. So what I'm doing with them is I'm helping them to gain that awareness where they don't have to react to the thoughts, and then they can figure out, okay, like, what is really within you? What is your power? What is your unwavering confidence? So it doesn't have to be this like act of confidence. It doesn't have to be about all of these tactics. It's just you're just you, right? So a lot of the things I'm doing is helping people to shed those layers and come back to that core of who they are. Because in that core, yeah, you're unstoppable, basically. So that's really what I'm doing with the clients is helping them come back right into the middle of who they are. From that place,
Right.
anything possible.
And from your perspective, what is the easiest access point to coming back to who you are, let's say?
Yeah, really good question. Because I would say to meditate is one of the easiest ways, but as everyone knows, it can be a challenging thing to do, especially if someone's new to it, right? So used to being in a certain way, reacting to everything. So I would say meditation, but there's also other techniques sometimes. So sometimes I'll give people certain breath techniques. Because if you focus on your breath, it's a lot easier to just put all of your focus on that and use your body as a tool, really. Using the body, using the chemistry, so you can almost manipulate that chemistry slightly to be more slowed down, to be more fired up as well sometimes.
Yeah.
So often I'll use, especially if someone's new to this, I'll show them some breath techniques, and then I'll say do some meditation after that, just to observe, just to sit. And I even sometimes I don't even use the word meditation. Sometimes I just say sit, just sit for 10 minutes, doing nothing. Thoughts appear, that's okay, just watch them. So that's a
Yeah.
really good way to get started. Like first using your body as a tool for mindfulness because it's a bit more of an active method. It's often easier for people. And then also to incorporate some kind of meditation where you're just in stillness.
Yeah. I think for many people, they know that mindfulness is for it, gained so much popularity over the past 20 years. But like anything else, habits are extremely hard to form, especially when there is no obvious payoff, let's say. And mindfulness, there is an obvious payoff once you're experiencing the payoff. But before you do it, it's easy for the average guy to think, why would I sit down for 10 minutes now? Surely whatever comes from that, I can just get now if I want it. Right? We underestimate each time what that state of mind is actually like because you can't quite remember how it is to be present when you're not present. Does that make sense? So how do you help your clients to instill mindfulness habits in their life, let's say?
Yeah. I said to one of my clients, she said, I don't know if I want to be, actually, she wasn't comfortable sitting for like in meditation position. So I said, how about you do 5 minutes? Just 5 minutes. You have 5 minutes. There's no one that can say they don't have it, right? So I said, let's start off with a challenge. Let's start off with 7 days where you just sit in stillness. You don't have to like compete with yourself. It doesn't have to be challenging. You just sit and listen. So I'll start with 7 days and then I'll say, how did that go? We'll talk about all of the challenges. And then I'll say, okay, how about for the next 14 days, we try something else, try a different technique maybe. So I think building the habit in a very, very small way is the best way for it to turn into a bigger habit, right? For it to be like brushing your teeth after a while because you just get used to it. And there's always going to be resistance with everything, right? It's like, for example, I tried to, I bought a, what do you call it? Ukulele, and it's like that, right? If you're very new to playing an instrument, it feels really challenging to start doing it. So I said to myself, let me just spend 15 minutes a day doing it. And again, like I thought to myself, what's the payoff for this? So you have to get connected to what am I really gonna get by doing this? Otherwise, no one wants to do these habits, right? Connecting to what is going to help you with, and then doing tiny versions of it to start with, I'd say, really tiny actions.
Yeah. And once you build that momentum with the tiny actions, it's almost motivating for you to do more because it feels like a bonus, right? So it's better to have low expectations of yourself and continually supersede them than to have high expectations and continually fail to meet them.
Definitely, definitely.
Cool. So I'm really curious because a lot of guys who are in my network who are really interested in mindfulness, a lot of friends and colleagues, they usually had some experience at usually an early age, but sometimes later in life, that sort of instigated their mindfulness process. There's usually something that happens where there's a big moment in your life that introduces mindfulness. And we haven't talked about this, so I'm curious, did you have one of those moments, or was this more of a logical sequence leading to your journey in mindfulness?
Yeah, no, thanks for asking. So for me, when I was younger, I had a lot of social anxiety. So I couldn't be in groups. And if anyone brought up something where I felt inadequate, I would get into freeze mode, fight, flight, and freeze. I hit all of those actually. So I was living in this state of constant like looking over my back in fear, really. And it started from when I was really, really young. So eventually, I found all these ways to like avoid it, which didn't really work out. Eventually, I started working out, started exercising, and that really, really helped me. And I know a lot of guys, that's what they do, right? They go to the gym, they work out, lift weights, they run, boxing, whatever. Helps you release some tension. I realize it's not enough. it was not enough. It was helping me temporarily, it helped me look great, but it's not enough just to do that, because we need some space to slow down and reconnect as well. So I guess what I realized after a while was, okay, I'm building muscles. Great, it looks great. I'm running. I took it so far that I was exercising in all sorts of ways, right? But something was missing. I was still feeling these moments of panic and insecurity that wasn't going away. So one day I walked into this yoga class and I just went because there was a pretty girl who was like, "Come along, Raj." I was like, "Sure, why not?" And it all started from there because I felt my whole body calm down properly for the first time. And then I thought, okay, I'm going to get into doing some meditation. And then that led me down this whole path of living a mindful life. So I guess it's been a
Interesting.
few different things that has brought this on, but let's just say a lifetime of living in fight or flight.
Yeah. So here I am trying to see how mindfulness can bring you the girls, and here you are telling me that the girl brought you mindfulness.
Yeah, I love that. For sure.
So how I suppose I'm curious now, before you became mindful and started paying attention, what was the way you related to that girl that invited you, and maybe how did the way that you framed her change after the experience of feeling your body slow down, and from there on after, did anything happen with that relationship?
Yeah, so something definitely happened with our relationship. We grew closer and closer as we were doing the practice together. And because I could talk to her about this kind of stuff, like, oh, I'm feeling great doing this yoga class. This is a different way of connecting with myself. We connected, we had a relationship, and yeah, it continued for a little while.
Okay. And did you find that your relationships took on a different kind of flavor or tone after that experience?
Hmm. I'd say so, yes. I was looking at life with more of a yes attitude, let's just say.
Hmm.
So I was saying yes to more things. Whereas before I would be all protective and I've got to overthink everything. But after that relationship, that mindful relationship, that mindful living, I was just opening up and trying new things and speaking to people in different ways, being more confident with women for sure.
Hmm. Yeah, I think it's definitely something that a lot of guys are struggling with, is like they have these neurotic thoughts. You know, they meet a woman and they recognize that they like her, and so they start fantasizing about the person, their sort of habits and preconceptions about women from early childhood have created this image of the perfect woman, and they filled in the gaps that they don't know about this woman with some platonic conception of the ideal woman, and it's just a complete fantasy world. Um, and I think that's something that mindfulness can really help you deal with, because when you recognize that you are not just one way, you are not the way he or she or even you perceive yourself to be, you are just exactly as you are. And those are all layers or other perceptions of how you are. Once you recognize that for yourself, you can see that that's exactly the same for someone else, and how she sees herself and how other people see her is fundamentally and necessarily different to how she actually is, if that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely makes sense. Yeah.
Cool. So I'm curious, how do you think mindfulness can be of value specifically to young men, right? So obviously it's valuable to everyone, but what's specific about the masculine and about men? Uh, how can mindfulness be specifically of value to them?
Yeah. Men need it. Well, I wouldn't say more, but men definitely need it because we're all about go, go, go. We're all about go, action. Let's go do this. We're about the fired up part of us, right? And that's why lifting weights has become so popular. Lifting weights, exercising, running, all of that stuff. It's like we need the yin to the yang, really. To be a greater man, we have to have that ability to be poised. And you look at really great speakers and leaders, they all have that sharp, calm poise about the way they speak, right? Because yes, they are energized. Yes, they have that power that a man has, but they also are present. They're really there. They're using that power more effectively. Sometimes I like to say to people, like, being a wildfire or being a controlled flame, where you can just point yourself sharply at things instead of us being all over the place. So that's the way I see mindfulness being useful as a tool to get into flow, to get into that flow, that peak level of being.
Interesting. Yeah, I think at its best in my life, that's what it is. And a lot of the time, it seems like it's an effort to return to that, you know? I mean, I've been practicing for 7 years consistently, and the past 2 or 3 months, I found myself almost not meditating when I'm sitting. You know, it's like I can sit down for 10 minutes and I haven't reached any point where I'm even clearly paying attention to my breath, right? Or my body sensation in my body. I can do it for moments, but it feels like the last 3 months has been a blur, you know? What's your advice to people who maybe are a bit more experienced with mindfulness, but they find themselves losing it or plateauing in a way that doesn't feel like it's actually necessarily improving their lives so much? Because I've been through a few phases like this in the past as well.
Yeah, good point. The first thing I'd say is when we try too hard, especially when meditating, when we're trying so hard, right? We're trying to get to a place, trying to get to a different state. It's like shaking the snow globe even more. It just goes everywhere. So there has to be this level of surrender. And I know that's not easy, right? It's not like you just chill on instantly. But there always has to be a practice of coming back to this is a surrender practice. This is your time to let go. All the other time in your day, you can go and hustle and do whatever you want to do. But this time has to be about you completely letting go. So sometimes what I encourage before someone wants to have a formal meditation practice is slow down your body. Use your body as a tool first, whether that's like doing a few stretches or mindful movements where you're just opening up chest, you're just rolling your shoulders out, something to get into your body first so it starts having that relaxation effect, using that parasympathetic response, right? So it just slows down. And then using your breath, so slowing down with just your breath. Then if you sit in a meditation, it's going to be so much more smoother. That 10 minutes will feel different if you use your body first. It's almost like, I call it like warming up in a way. So
Yeah.
that's what I'd say,
So you think,
especially for men who are very active. So just
yeah,
get into your body first, because it's really easy to be stuck in the head.
yeah, 100%. So you think that it's almost like what I teach is action comes before thought. So if a guy is shy to go and talk to a girl he wants to meet, a woman he wants to go and talk to, there is no way of arguing his way into the difficult action in his mind. However, if he takes an immediate and instant and unthinking action in her direction, then he will figure out what to say upon arrival because his evolved systems kick into play. It's like, you're there now, you've got to do something. So it sort of sounds like you're suggesting the same thing. It's like, if you want to get into mindfulness, a mindful state, start by acting in a mindful way, start by moving mindfully, and then your thoughts are going to follow your actions rather than trying to persuade your mind to create the right. actions.
Yeah, exactly that. Because, like you said with your example, you're really in the world. When you're in the world, when you're really here, going up and speaking to a woman, you're just going to say what's coming through, right? Instead of trying to say what like your head is trying to figure out. And it works the same way with everything. Like if you were going to do a presentation, you're really there, you're really with the people, and something just comes through your energy, comes through your voice. And yeah, if you do this as a practice in in your life, like in your morning, in your evening, whatever, however you do it, it's almost like you're preparing to be in that place because you get used to that now. So going up to a woman is like, hey, I know what it feels like to be calm because I've been practicing this. Just like a tennis player will practice their stroke, right?
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So, man, I'm curious what it means to be an accredited mindfulness practitioner. Like, what was your process to saying, right, okay, this is clearly a value in my life. Now I'm gonna get qualified. And what did that mean to you? And what was the process like? And what does it mean in reality now for you?
Yeah. So, so it's almost like I was already living this way and I was already showing people this stuff and I'm passionate about it, right? It's something that's helped me. So it felt like the most simplest move to say, okay, I might as well do this. I might as well get accredited. So the accreditation allows me to officially teach mindfulness courses. That's one thing. And it taught me some ways to work with very, very beginners, right? Some really simple things for them to do. But really, the course, like for me, it was like I got to get this course to practice it, which isn't actually true, but it just adds to the wealth of my experience. It felt like at the time, if I get this course, it's going to make me more credible as a teacher. And it did. It definitely did. But after that, it's been me actually being that person, getting experienced, guiding people, leading meditations, showing people how to live a mindful life. So that's what it's enabled me to do, to be that person that can, show people this way, basically.
Yeah. And how do you usually teach now? Do you teach in group settings, like solitary guided meditations for people, or do you run more like week-long courses? Like, how do you like to work with your clients in general?
Yeah, so I work with a few people one-to-one. So I'm personally working with them, coaching them. And that's not just mindfulness, that's like whatever they want to work on, but it's taking a mindful approach to it, right? So that could be working on their business, that could be working on whatever, like whatever challenges they're having, wherever they want to go. A few people one to one, and then I'll run some group programs every now and then. I had one just recently where I had a 4-week intensive. So it included 3 full days, and then it included some extra calls afterwards. And yeah, small-ish groups when I do those. And then I sometimes run bigger events online where I stream and there's just people coming live, basically. So that's much more bigger group. Sometimes it gets up to about 100 people, and I'm guiding a meditation. I'm teaching, I'm talking about things I'm passionate about and getting everyone involved. So yeah, it really depends. And sometimes I might even just speak. I might go to a corporation and just speak for a couple of hours or something like that.
Awesome. And what do you think when you're working with clients? What are some signs that they're progressing? Because I think with my work and your work, it's not like business or let's say personal training where in the gym it's like, okay, well, can you lift more weights and are you getting bigger? Or with business, are you making more money? Have you got more leads? With mine and your work, it's often harder to initially see what progress, like the manifestations of progress. So from your perspective, what are signs that your clients are progressing in the right direction?
Yeah, so one sign is they're not stuck in their ego as much. I start to notice that. I start to see them catching themselves out. When I see someone catching themselves out and realizing, okay, like this is my limitation speaking. This is something that I'm judging someone about. I'm judging myself about. As soon as they start having a little bit of separation between themselves and their mind, that's when I realize, okay, this stuff is really working. They're making progress. When they're able to take actions with less fear, when they're able to do things with less fear. So right at the beginning, there's always people who are attached to their way of life. And what I want to do as a teacher is I almost want to show them that there's a whole different way you operate in life. So once they start moving toward that, that's my measurement to realize that, okay, they're letting go of that old self. They're able to do these things and become who they want to be. And definitely when they take these actions, they create that hard evidence that they can be as confident as they want, right? So yeah, that's a few of the ways that come up.
Interesting. And what do you think, if anything, is I mean, we talked about it briefly before, but there seems to be no end goal with mindfulness, right? Which makes it a little different from maybe wanting to have that big business or wanting to have that perfect wife or that whatever. With mindfulness, it's obviously a lifelong journey and pursuit. But what do you think is, if you're encouraging someone who's very logical minded and doesn't really think mindfulness is worth their time, what would be a concrete destination for them that you could say, look, this is how your life is going to be better once you get there, right? How would you sell mindfulness to someone who wouldn't consider it?
Yeah. So for me personally, the way I would do this is I would say you become fearless. Become fearless. Because the logic is all your mind trying to calculate what something will be like, trying to predict everything, trying to avoid fear, really ultimately is the avoidance of fear, the avoidance of danger. So when someone can go into things without that stopping them, that's what mindfulness is to me, is you become fearless. You're able to just go and create your life, do things you want to do, because you're really here, you're really in the world rather than in your head.
Okay, that sounds like a good pitch to a straightforward CEO who's a straight shooter. It sounds like you've got some experience with that.
Definitely.
So I'm curious, given that it is a lifelong journey and a long-term pursuit, where do you feel like you are in your life with regard to mindfulness? And I suppose, how are you progressing now, and where do you feel like you're progressing to, if anywhere?
Yeah, really good question. It's really interesting because every few months I hit another level that I didn't think existed. I'm saying to myself, wow, like I'm able to do these things now. I'm living with less fear. Can't get any better. And then it somehow, like after a few months occur, I'm taking more actions that scare me. So I guess that's a really good measurement for me, like doing things that feel like they're frightening, the ability to go ahead and do stuff. And the journey I've gotten to so far is like, I wouldn't say I'm like enlightened or anything like that. I still experience and hear thoughts and hear these challenges. But now I'm at this stage where I've got separation between what is true and what is not. And I'm able to listen and then come back to like my real wisdom. What does my wisdom say? What does my power say? Okay, it's saying this, so I have to do this. Even though my mind and my fear, my body is saying this. So yeah, to answer your question, like where am I going with it? I'm not sure. Like it just gets exciting as I continue, and I just know that I have to continue. I can't say, oh, I'm at this place, I'm at a plateau, I reached some place, because I love to play with that beginner's mind all the time, right? To always be a learner, always start off like there's much more to learn.
Yeah, that is, I agree. I mean, that is when I'm, I suppose, I don't want to say most mindful because it doesn't really make sense, but when I'm just in that childish, playful, curious, explorative, adventurous mindset, like it's not even just mindfulness, it's literally everything worthwhile comes from there, you know, all creativity, all attention and ability to appreciate the little things around you. You know, I have one really clear memory just after I started mindfulness practice. I went down a weird route. I started kind of getting involved in more like cultish mindfulness speakers and gurus, and I followed one, but I remember I was becoming very mindful at the time. Just also some dogmatic stuff going along with it. I remember walking down the street and looking around and feeling the wind against my skin and looking up and seeing all of the windows along the top floor of the apartment blocks and just becoming intensely curious about the fact that there is another life as rich and as detailed and populated with its own characters in exactly the same way as mine. And as I see that light and that wardrobe in that room, I'm just like overcome by this intense feeling that there is another person living their own drama, living their own reality right there, and there, and there, and there. And this is all around me. And, you know, it was really bizarre because I would have never have even thought to look up at the buildings. And here I was, like, seeing the life of another individual, you know, and that was kind of profound.
Yeah, that's deep. It's like you have that compassion and you can feel in someone's shoes, right? That's really what mindfulness helped me with as well. It's looking at a human being, right? Seeing that person as a real human instead of like they're scary or I've got to prove something to them. All that stuff goes out the window once you can see them for like the human that they are. And then people become less scary. Life becomes less scary, right? So you realize, well, we're
Yeah.
all humans trying our best. That's all we are.
Yeah, basically identical, you know, with the same dramas, the same problems, the same values, mostly love, health, so just being able to be comfortable and survive and with our own ambitions, we're basically equal.
Yeah.
Cool, man. So I'm aware of your time and the value of your time, the demands on your time. So just sort of in wrapping up, I want to ask a fun and slightly childish question. But
Yeah.
what sort of world do you envision happening? Like, what kind of world are we going to gain? Are we going to be a part of if every single individual totally embrace mindfulness as their number one priority in life? How do you see the world would become in such a case?
Hmm. That's a powerful question. I would see the world becoming more connected to each other. Less about, I've got to own this and own that person and compete and beat that person. I think we'll create much more collaboration if we're able to become mindful. Because you see then, you see what you really want in life and you see what someone else really wants in life, and you start supporting each other really. Ultimately, you become friendlier when you're mindful. And you start going for things that you want in life as well. Personally, you start saying, this is what I want my life to be like. Often our overthinking will talk us out of it. But if you're able to be more mindful, you're able to be present here, as well as you have a vision for the future and you can take calmer actions towards it. So yeah, I think there's just endless opportunities if someone in the whole world was able to come like this.
Do you think that society would reorganize itself? Do you think that like relationships would change and our expectations of relationships and love?
I think so, yeah. I think people would just become more connected and aware of how the other person feels, right? And be more giving to others rather than taking.
Yeah. I wonder if the population would increase or decrease, more or less sex.
Much more. I'd say
Much more.
much more.
Amen to that.
People will be way more connected with each other. Their bodies,
in every way.
For sure.
Awesome. Yeah, so for my audience, my ulterior motive here is that I'm looking for a sort of mindfulness practitioner, instructor for some of my clients. Now that I'm running these 6-month courses, 3 6-month courses in London, so many of my clients need help in many different areas, mindfulness being one. So it's great to connect with someone who's got his feet on the ground, and sort of is, I don't know, relatable and good at what you do and clear speaking. So I look forward to any kind of collaboration that we have down the line. And for the moment, where can guys come to find you if they want to get in touch with you and seek your services?
Yeah, so firstly, I appreciate your acknowledgement, and yeah, likewise, I like your style and I like the way your delivery is and who you are as a person. And for people to find me, they can go on Instagram and just look for Raj Gorsia. That's probably the best way to find me. I'm posting things every day, and as you've kind of recognized, I'm very practical in all of this stuff. I'm not fluffy and overly fluffy. I really want this to be practical stuff for people to thrive in life. So check out my Instagram page. There's also a YouTube page. I've got a bunch of resources on there as well. But yeah, if you really want to get in touch, find me on Instagram and just drop me a message there, or Facebook, or whatever you prefer.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much for joining me today. And yeah, I look forward to any future collaboration. Thanks a lot, Raj.
It was a pleasure.
Cheers.